when all this stuff with the quarantine first started, I noticed that people who had anxiety, like myself, that it seemed like they were having a little bit of an easier time with it. Almost like we were in training this whole time. But I've noticed that as time has gone on, that it's kind of starting to be very hard to keep that panic from rising. It's like the panic is contagious, and when you have mass hysteria, regardless of whether it's warranted or not, uh, you find that it becomes very difficult to keep your calm. It's like when you're sitting next to somebody who's breathing real heavy, and you start feeling like you're losing your breath. And so I just want to make sure that um, that you guys are doing okay. If you're feeling like your anxiety is getting out of control, or it's just getting to be too much to handle, there's no shame in getting help. And I know that it's more difficult now to get help because, well, everything's shut down. But I want to encourage you to try and find a way to uh, to just kind of relax and calm down. It can be something, like reading a book, or just something that you get to look forward to. Maybe if there's a book that you're really excited about, um, order it so it takes a few days to get here so you can enjoy waiting for it to come. Then when it gets here, read it, have fun with it, that kind of stuff. Go for a walk, or just something to kind of give yourself time to kind of decompress and that kind of stuff. I have a playlist on my channel that's just focused on helping you guys get through um, anxiety and depression and porn and all that stuff. Not just during the quarantine, but also just in your day-to-day lives. Some of you guys started dealing with stuff, or maybe were trying to start dealing with stuff before all this happened, and then it started hitting it, kind of caught you off guard. Maybe I know a lot of people are having a hard time. Sometimes it seems like maybe it's kind of the thing's kind of dragging out. Like it seems like it's never going to go away. And I think that when you don't think that there will be an end to it, that it seems more hopeless. So let me just it will eventually end. Okay, so let's all just kind of calm down and focus on the good parts of life. Um, Learn to adapt to the new situation, because if you constantly think, "Oh, I wish it could go back to how it was," you're just going to stress yourself out even more. Yes, things have changed. Yes, it's inconvenient or scary or whatever. But remember to take this time to just kind of adapt to the change. Getting upset and spinning out, it's not gonna fix anything. It's something there. This is the reality of the situation that I'm in right now. Accept it, embrace it, learn to live with it, and then when it ends, it ends. So anyways, today's big idea, and I found out that I was doing a live feed on the church's page, and I found out that I sometimes block the microphone. I haven't quite figured out where it is. I'm new to this smartphone thing. I had one iPhone once, and I just prefer flip phones. I like things to be simple. I don't like to have one device that does all the different stuff, because, like, take for instance the Bible. When you read the Bible on your phone, it's harder to pay attention for me, because your phone is used for so many different things. Or at nighttime when it's time to be going to bed, you're online. It's like, I don't really like smartphones, but it was really my only option that I had. And I haven't quite figured out where the microphone is. It's somewhere over here, so I will try not to hold it like this. Okay, so anyways, so today's big idea is this: if you give in, it changes you. If you give in, it changes you. Now, a common example of this would be for those of you who may have gone through a divorce. After you get a divorce, it's very hard to you find that you have doubts that you didn't before, that you have maybe a harder time connecting with people than you did before. Maybe there's a bad attitude where there wasn't before. Maybe you feel like you have to always validate yourself, or that kind of stuff. And when you go through something like a divorce, it permanently changes you. People who make it through with their marriage, you find that they have a different attitude. A lot of the times, these are just general observations, not always, just general observations. And so now, how does this apply to what we're talking about? Okay, If you give in, it changes you. When you are going through, like, let's say, anxiety or depression or that kind of stuff, the more you do it, the more you teach yourself to do it, and the more you teach yourself that you need to do it. But it's actually addictive behaviors and things like that. The more you do it, the less pleasure you're going to get from it. So, like, let's say, for instance, I know depression, anxiety is not an addiction, but if you're having, like, depression, and so you give in and you say, okay, I'm going to hide in my house and withdraw from everybody, then that's all you're going to want to do. But then the more you withdraw, the worse you're going to feel. See what I mean? And just kind of gets to be this spiral. And so when you give in, it changes you. When you let your anxiety call the shots, it changes you. It becomes harder to deal with it later. It becomes something where, I heard Chris Songson mention this once. Changing the atmosphere and that kind of stuff, it's like pushing a rock uphill. And that rock is always pushing down. And sometimes you think, oh, I just need a break. But here's the thing, if you stop pushing that rock, it's going to go back downhill. And you're going to have to start all over again. And it's the exact same thing. When you act, everything that you are doing is an active choice. And those choices always have repercussions. And so the more that you allow that depression to govern you, yes, I feel sad, therefore I will not even try. I feel anxious, therefore, I'm not even going to leave my house. Okay, yes, I have this lust, I have to do this. Whenever you give in, it changes you. It becomes harder later on to do the right thing. It gets harder to start fighting it if you haven't started yet. And the longer you avoid doing the thing, the harder it is. I'll deal with my depression tomorrow. I'll learn how to not give in tomorrow. Well, see, what you do is you teach your brain to procrastinate, to put it off. And that causes your brain to not know how to deal with it. So therefore, next time it's going to make it harder too. It's like when you exercise. Okay, I'm going to start eating healthy and exercise. Okay, I'll start tomorrow. Let's say hypothetically you do start tomorrow, which isn't very likely, because if you put it off till the next day, if you don't get up first thing in the morning, do it right then, you probably won't do it. And you probably won't stick with it. But let's say hypothetically you do. Then the next day you say, well, okay, I did good yesterday, but today I'm just going to take a break. And so what happens is you teach your brain not to stick with it, and that makes it harder to build the habit. And the easiest thing that you do will always be the thing that your brain gravitates to. For instance, it's easier to sit on the couch than to exercise. So the more that you lean towards the easier solution, the more you're going to be naturally just kind of geared towards that way, and it'll be harder for you later on. But the more you do something, the more it builds it in you. So, like, for instance, the more that you learn to run from your panic attacks, to just shut down, then that's the easier solution, and it'll get to be a habit, and it'll be harder to break that. So the longer you avoid, the harder it is. And you teach yourself to avoid it, which is a very important part I want to make. So then somewhere along the lines we say, look, I'm tired of dealing with this. I deal with this every day. I get that. Yes, and you know what? The problem is, if you're anything like me, you will probably have to deal with it every day for the rest of your life. Sometimes that gets very daunting. And so then we tell ourselves something along the lines of this: I'll just take a break. I've been doing really good, I'll just take a break. But like I said with that pushing the rock up, you take a break, the rock doesn't take a break. It'll slide right back down. You have to get up every single day. This is who I am. I'm a fighter. This is who I am. I don't give up. I can do this. Surround yourself with people who will encourage you. Yes, you can do this. You don't have to give up. Don't give up. But here's the flip side of that. The more you face it, the more it changes you, but for the positive. Like, for instance, your depression. The more you start dealing with your depression, the less you're going to have kind of that give-up mentality. It's not going to be like every single time that something goes wrong, oh, it's the end of the world. It's going to be like, I can get through this. I can get through this. Calm yourself down. Get back into it. It's okay to take like a breath, you know what I mean? Like where maybe you're really not having a good time. Just sit down and just kind of... But know when that moment is over, and know when it's time to get back up. It's like on Batman Begins, where the dad says, "You fell, Bruce. Do you know why we fall? So we can learn to pick ourselves back up. When you fail with something, it's not a failure unless you don't get back up again. So like let's say you're dealing with depression and you have a rough day. That doesn't make it a failure. What makes it a failure is when you don't even try. When you stop, when you just give up. And so the more you face it, the more it changes you. When you start facing your depression, you start feeling less distraught all the time. You start feeling less like giving up. You start facing your anxiety, and you start thinking, oh, this is too much. It's too much that I can't even focus on it. But here's the thing. The more it won't ever be as bad as it was when you first started facing it. You'll still have rough days, but the rough days will still be better than your old normal days were. So that's kind of a important thing to keep in perspective there. So today's verse is Galatians chapter 6, verse 9. And it says, "And let us not grow weary of doing good, for in due season we will reap if we do not give up." Now, there's a very important lesson here. You might say, "Oh, I'm not really religious." That's not my point at all. That principle still applies. If you don't give up, you will reap a reward eventually. If you don't give up, and that's just how life works. Very important verse. So okay, what do I do with this? What do I do with this big idea? If you give and it changes you, where can I go with this? This is the action step. This is the thing that you can what you can do with this. Okay, what you can do this week is stop avoiding it. Whatever is you're dealing with, whatever is you're struggling with, whether it's an addiction, pornography, maybe a habit that you want to kick, maybe depression, maybe anxiety, whatever that thing is, stop avoiding it today, right now. Start facing it right now, today. Take any step this week, any step whatsoever. Don't wait until a more opportune time. Do it now. Now, see, it's hard. It's hard now because we're in quarantine. But here's the thing: don't say I'll do it after quarantine. Even if it's just like a diet, start today. Don't wait till after quarantine, because here's the thing: you don't know what tomorrow brings, and you don't want to teach yourself to only do things when it's as easy as humanly possible. Face it, because you can. You can do it, and your better life is waiting for you today. Right now, it's waiting for you. So that's what I want to encourage you to do right now this week. Start facing it. Start facing it. If you're going through depression, contact somebody. Right now, call them up and say, "Hey, how are you doing? I just wanted to talk." Get off Facebook. That's not going to help. In fact, screens have been known to actually cause depression and having a hard time to sleep, that kind of stuff. So don't go online. Maybe just go out for if you're real bad with anxiety, for instance, go out for a walk. Or go out for a drive and go somewhere that you're scared to go. Do something that you're scared to do. My tarantula, for instance, where is he? He's right there. There you go. Boop, right there. I went and got him some crickets today, and I think he's pretty happy about that. But do something that you're scared to do. If it's porn, maybe take that step of getting rid of your smartphone. Take that step of putting up some kind of a porn blocker. There's one that I'm trying on my phone, and so far I like it. It's called Real Men Don't Porn. So it's RMDP. And it's an app. It goes on your smartphone. I haven't had it for very long, so I can't really say it, but I do know that I have the sensitivity turned to high, and if I make any changes or try to delete it, it tells the person who I'm buddies with. And they get a daily breakdown of every single thing that I do online. Now you might say, "Oh, why do you need that?" Because I know where I came from. I know where I came from. Okay, so there's just some ideas there. If maybe you're trying to stop a habit like smoking or something like that, right now throw your cigarettes away. You think, how am I going to deal with my stress? Find a way, learn, reteach yourself. See, you've taught yourself to go to cigarettes every time. You can get through this, and you can relearn. They say 21 days makes a habit. I don't know how true that is, but it's gonna take some effort, and you can do it. Now you're gonna have days that you have harder than others. There's gonna be days that you feel like giving up. There's gonna be days that you do give up. None of that makes you a failure. Don't be ashamed about any of that. Keep getting back up and keep going. And I know that your better tomorrow is waiting for you today. So have a great time, and don't give up.